Hi there and welcome in to the organisation series. This is the first one of a series of episodes where we're going to dig deep into organisation. But in the first episode, it would be amiss if we didn't work through the step principle to understand as a framework and how we can then spin off that later. So let's look at organisation and let's look at the step principle. So STEP, the step principle, is a really well-known educational tool which is used by teachers and coaches to help them understand and to plan their organisation and safety, particularly on court. So I'm going to write in here, number one thing, whenever we're organising any session, is to make sure that it is safe. Safety is the number one thing. Okay, so regardless of whether or not people improve, whether they have a great time, the number one thing is that they're safe. So let's have a look at the step principle. Now, the step principle stands for S for space, T for task, E for equipment, and P for our players or people. Okay. So we've got those as our main headings of how we might organise. Now, if we take space first, now when we're looking at space, firstly, is it clear of everything that could be a potential hazard? So let's have a little look at things like bags. Are they in the right position? Balls on court, rackets, cones, lines. Are they safe? Are they in good condition? But are they safe? Are they put in a position where nobody's going to be running over them? So, for example, cones and lines are really good if you are using them as sending skills. But if you're putting lines or particularly cones that stand up where people are running around, there is the possibility that they'll put the foot over them and they'll slip and they'll trip and they'll hurt themselves. So be really mindful of how you would use cones and lines. Okay. They are court markers, but they're not there for when people are actually sprinting around and running around when there's markers on court. Okay. So then we need to consider with space, we need to consider our activities. In what space will our activity happen? So will we use a half court, a whole court, or a section of a court? Okay. So we're planning our numbers and we're thinking about how we're going to work with our players and what space we're going to be involved. How many players are you going to have on a court? Are you going to have four on a court? Are you going to have 6 on a court? Are you going to have 8 on a court? How are you going to rotate those players around? So we need to think about that space. One other thing that you might need to consider with space is, say for example, you're working with children. A lot of children and a lot of players will put their rackets on a paddle court into the fence and they'll hang down, which is actually at eye height of children. So you just need to be mindful about where those rackets are in the fence. Okay, so that's definitely a little bit of a hazard. So that's our space. Let's consider task. Now, every task that we set up needs to be to the level of the players. So to the level of players. Now, let me give you an example with that. If you're working on receiving a ball from the net to the back and we're working on a ball that's coming straight, it's easier than working on a ball that's going to rebound at an angle and then kick off at a different angle. So is it suitable for the level of players that you've got in front of you, and ensuring that that is correct. Now with the task, is everybody clear? So you need to ask questions to make sure everybody's clear in what they're going to be doing. And then there's going to be numbers involved in the task. And what are your numbers? Okay, what are your numbers? Because tennis or paddle is all about numbers. Okay, it's all about numbers, scoring, how many times you get the ball in. And so your numbers in your task are really important. Is it the length of rally? Is it the amount of times that they can do a skill? Okay, is it a time limit that we put on? What are the numbers that we've got when we're working with a task? Make sure everybody's clear on those numbers. Now, equipment is making sure that you have the right amount. It's of good quality. And it is suitable for the level. So have you got a range of balls? Exactly. If you're working with children, have you got a range of rackets that you could borrow, people could borrow when they come in? And so that's with your equipment. And think about where you're going to store that or put it, you know, during activities. Do you need a ball collector? And they can be quite fun, can't they, for people to collect the balls with, and actually much easier than trying to put them on the racket or carry them in the hands. So think about your equipment. And then finally, with our players, we need to make sure with our players that it is for the individual. Now that could mean right-handers and left-handers. It could mean that we've got friends and how we deal with friends, and making sure that we create a larger network of players so that you keep the friends together for a little bit and then you mix them up with others. So you make sure that you rotate the group round. And that's important to rotate the group round because actually you've got different levels of players in your group. So it would definitely be wrong to always put the better players with the better players and the weaker players with the weaker players. And I'll do a section on differentiation in one of the upcoming videos on how we can deal with mixed abilities, and it's quite important. But we definitely want to be able to rotate those better players with the players who are less developed at challenges and tasks that they can be competitive with each other. So you need to rotate and consider levels of players. Yes, of course, we want to be able to have some players who are playing with the better players to get some stuff at their level. And then we want to be able to also get the players to play others and work on different skills at different times. So that's the STEP principle. It's used in education, it's used with coaches, and it's just something that we need to be aware of before we then go and look at more closely, much more detail in terms of organising on court and our numbers. So I hope you enjoyed the first session. There's going to be lots more detail coming. Any comments? Please let me know.